Hi, I'm Conor Meade, and we're here at the Canadian Science Policy Conference with Dr. Margaret Walton Roberts, Professor in Geography and Environmental Studies at Sir Wilfrid Laurier University and Associate Dean of the School of Policy and Governance at the Balsillie School of International Affairs. Dr. Walton Roberts, thanks. Welcome to the conference, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to start off, could you tell us a bit about your research on immigrant networks and settlements here in Canada?
I'd be happy to. My research has primarily focused on migration from India to Canada, and recently I've been involved in a number of projects looking at the migration of healthcare professionals, healthcare workers, and obviously those individuals are kind of embedded in a scientific community in terms of their training and the networks and the kinds of work that they are involved in. And they're also very important in terms of a development issue. So really a lot of my work thinks about issues of migration and development, the role of diaspora, and global circulations in terms of skilled professionals.
Okay. Do you recall how you first became interested in these research topics?
I think it was obviously years ago when I was doing my undergraduate and my master's. I was just very interested in mobility. I think I was interested in population movements. I was interested in the whole transnational dimension. What was it like where people came from? How was their journey? And how was their eventual settlement? So a lot of my work is distinguished because it is transnational. I look at the whole journey, the source, the journey, and the destination.
Okay. So what do you think are some policy actions that we can take to encourage diasporan philanthropy and ensure that attracting talented scientists to work in Canada remains a clear win-win for us and for the developing countries?
These are important issues that in some ways need us to think about mutuality in our relationship with migrant sending regions. So obviously we can do lots of things on a policy front, which is we need to be careful about how we facilitate the entry of skilled professionals into the Canadian labour market. Because if we want those individuals to contribute to the sending regions that they've come from, we need to minimize the amount of time they spend kind of being disrupted, if you like. So in Canada, we're very conscious of these issues in terms of credential blockages, non-credential recognition, and a number of groups have taken great strides to facilitate a transparent, fair, and objective process of aligning those kinds of credentials into the Canadian system. So that's one important thing we can do. Also, there's been a number of changes in our immigration policy so that we can fairly assess and give credit to people for the human capital that they bring to the country. And our policy in terms of matching international collaboration with the kinds of resources and strengths that we want to develop both here in Canada and overseas. I think those are constant public policy issues that we've been paying some attention to and will continue and should continue to do so.
Okay, thank you. So what do you think are some of the major ways that you see technology affecting the migration process, resettlement, remittances, and our links to diaspora communities? How do you see technology affecting those issues?
Well, technology plays a big role in connecting up global diasporas. You only have to look at the use of things like Skype, for example. I mean, that's a very early technology that allowed people to live, far away from each other, but actually remain socially connected. So things like Skype is an important one. Global conferencing platforms are important for bringing people together in terms of educational, scientific, technological development processes. So technology plays a role there. Technology is increasingly important when we think about the circulation of migrant remittances. You only have to look at the various kind of online banking platforms that people have access to on their cell phones. And you can see this in many developing countries where there's this leapfrogging effect in that people are picking up cell technology in a much more elaborate and wide-scale manner than, for example, in countries like Canada. If you look at some of the African nations, Nigeria, Kenya, other countries where these kinds of mobile technologies that facilitate financial transfer, information sharing, very widely adopted and adapted, and there's a great deal of potential there, I think.
So kind of like how many developing countries have skipped the landline telephone
Exactly.
entirely, we're seeing the same thing within financial services in the financial sector.
Yeah, and
That's
there's a lot of
interesting.
companies that are developing very user-friendly applications where people can transfer money. The key now is to actually be to facilitate the transfer of money for much less in commissions. There's a huge burden on global transfers of capital through the commission charging regimes, and so we need to see that be addressed. And it's certainly something groups like the World Bank are addressing.
Excellent. That's very interesting. So before we wrap up, how are you enjoying the 2015 Canadian Science Policy Conference so far? Well, what do you think is the major value of the conference to scientists and to attendees?
Just from my own perspective this morning, the session I was in on diaspora scientist networks was enormously rewarding. I met a number of people who I'm very pleased to know of the work that they do, of the institutions that they represent, and it's allowed me to think somewhat differently about some of my own work and potentially think about collaborations going forward that might yield some positive benefits for Canada, as well as a number of the countries where we receive immigrants and diasporic scientists come from. So there's a lot of potential, and I'm very pleased I've been able to be here.
Excellent. Right on. Well, we hope to see you back in future years. Before we go, I just want to quickly ask, for people who are watching, where should they go to learn more about your work, more about your research, and to dig a little deeper into these issues?
Okay, so I am one of the faculty at the Balsillie School of International Affairs. You can check out their website, and in addition I'm also a research associate of the International Migration Research Centre, so you can just check imrc.ca and find my work there.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much, Doctor, and thank you so much for joining us here at the conference and here for this interview.
That was my pleasure, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.